Okay, this video is about the factory accessory wiring. This particular unit is a 2018 Wildcat XX. I could find a wiring diagram. I'll put it in the description below. Thanks a lot to Country Cat for supplying that. But what I couldn't find is any information about specifics of the plugs, where they were at, and how they were wired. So take the hood off, and we'll start with the A circuits. The switched A circuit is the block that you'll see right down in that hole. I'll put a better picture of it in there, but the A power is switched anytime that the key is on, and there's a relay with a 30 amp fuse, and that feeds the A block, which is the 3 parallel SAE plugs. So you'll see 3 males, that's the 3 grounds, and 3 females right next to it. So you can take a standard SAE plug like I'll put in this video and plug into any one of those to get power and ground. Now that switched power whenever the key's on, there's also an A connector between the seats where the fuse block is at on the right. So that is the A circuits. If you need power up front, there's really only one place to get it. It's either run it through the tunnel to the back. Look at any of the videos on winch installations on the XX and you'll see it. Or the cigarette outlet plug at the back of the dash, right down through this hole, is 30 amp power that's hot all the time. So if you want to put in a relay and run, say, a light bar that's not used very often, and it's not used at the same time as that circuit, you could tie into that and avoid running your wires. The B circuits are a little bit more difficult to explain, but the B circuits are also switched power. Whenever the switch is on, there's a 30 amp fuse in the fuse box with a relay that feeds 3 separate 10-pin Carling style blocks. So if you look down through here, you're going to find all 3 of those blocks wrapped in a bag, each individually wrapped. They will be labeled Accessory B1, Accessory B2, Accessory B3. Each one of those plugs has 3 pins in it. It only uses 3 of the 10. That's 2, which is power, 3, which is switched power, and 7, which is ground. If you look at the standard Carling switch book, you'll see the standard pinout. This follows many of the Chinese copies and others, but it's a very standard arrangement. So if you plug a switch into the dash, the simplest one I'll put in the description below as well, is an Wildcat switch. I'll show you a picture on the dash, and that just connects pin 2 to pin 3, which feeds power then back to the B1, B2, or B3 fuse between the seats. From that fuse, B1 comes back up underneath the dash and is a standard single SAE plug. By SAE plug, I mean the 2 wire plug, 1 male, 1 female. It looks almost like a 4-flat trailer connector cut in half. The other 2, B2 and B3, are between the seats. So when I went to wire the lighted whips that are on this rig, I unbagged the B2 connector, plugged in a simple switch. I put a 15 amp fuse in the block on the driver's side in the B2 position, and there's a B2 pigtail I plugged the SAE connector into, ran it around the cage on this side, hit it between the roof and the cage, and out through the roof. The C connectors are a little more difficult to find, but they're what's commonly used for a light bar. I do not have one installed right now, but I did remove the fender for the pictures. And specifically what you're removing is the splash guard. So you're going to need to pull these front three screws on the rocker cover. And then pull the screws on the inside of here. If you want to get more access, there is one plastic rivet you can peel open from underneath the dash. You actually see that over here. And keep the bolts separate because they are several different lengths and 2 different styles. So keep them separate and remember where they went. Mark them if you have to, because they need to go back in the same spot. What you're going to find is the same 10-pin Carling type connector in a bag. I'll insert a picture right here. And there's going to be a standard SAE connector. So just like the B circuits, you plug the switch in, put it in the knockout right underneath the light switch on the driver's side. When you do that, there'll be power to the pin 2. When you flip the switch on, power to pin 3 feeds back to the fuse panel on the driver's side. The driver's side, there's accessory C1, and that's put a 15 amp fuse in there up to 15 amps. That feeds the SAE connector you'll also find behind this panel. Now for the big light bars, anything over 180 watts, remember volts times amps is watts, so if you get above 180 watts, that's 15 amps. You're going to need to run a wire either to your power outlet over here that's always on for the relay, and then use this as a pilot power, or you're going to have to run wires back underneath the tunnel to the battery and use that to power the relay, with C1 being the switch for that relay. There's also one other important power connector, and that's a 30 amp fused always hot connector. It's in the bundle right above this guard. If you remove the bed liner on it, reach down and look at the bundle, you're going to see it. It has a rubber plug in it. The rubber plug is covering a standard SAE connector that has 10 gauge wires connected to it, and that is 30 amp fused power. So for instance, if you need a small battery charger to keep your battery up if you're not going to use it for a while, or if you want to power your air compressor from back here instead of from the power outlet on the dash, you can go ahead and do that. So that 30 amp, I will put a picture of it in here, but you can see there's 30 amp power available at the back, 30 amp power in the front, and we covered the A circuits, B circuits, and C circuits.